This is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 11 of The Grief of Politics. And this month was Avin's turn to pick. Avin, what?
I chose the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. It's all over the media at the moment. By the time this comes out, we should already have a verdict. But as of right now, we're recording on Sunday, November 14th. And so...
Deliberations begin Monday.
Yes, tomorrow. So we'll have a little bit more kind of clarity on the decision. Probably later this week. Maybe not for sure, but probably.
Also, this isn't the only high-profile case we have going on right now.
So, right now we've got two super high-profile court cases going on. One is the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, and the other one is the trial for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. I was listening to the radio the other day, and the commentator actually brought up, we shouldn't be calling it the Ahmaud Arbery case because he's the victim. We should be naming the ones on trial. But I can't remember their name because that's not what we're talking about in the media, and it's really unfortunate. The reason I chose Kyle Rittenhouse is because I see way more media on what's going on with Kyle Rittenhouse, and it's far more divisive. Whereas Ahmaud Arbery, which was probably more tragic, isn't getting the same coverage, and I think that's because it's not as contentious. It's my perception.
I mean, a lot of it comes down to political beliefs and things like that. I mean, we've talked about, how people feel on one way of the aisle or the other.
Mm-hmm.
How if you're a conservative, you feel one way, and if you're liberal, you feel another way.
Agreed.
So, it's going to be pretty contentious, I think.
Well, and this one is, the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is, unfortunately, very political and divisive in the media coverage, and that's specifically why I wanted to discuss this one. So I chose a couple of articles that I think have a more conservative slant, one that definitively does, and I chose a couple of articles that I think have a more liberal or progressive slant, however you're wanting to label that.
Was the Blaze article, was that the article that was more conservative? Is that the one you're talking about that you said was really...
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I mean, have you ever read an article from the Blaze that isn't written from a conservative slant?
Not really. But, they've been known to be, I don't even know really where I'm going with that. I would just say that, yes, sometimes they're conservative mostly, and that's how they're, that's how they come down on certain issues. So, it's kind of by the book with this one, I think. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see when we get into it, when we get into reading the articles, how it goes. So, yeah.
So, something I've been doing for a while now is whenever I read something along those lines, I'll dig a little bit deeper into it. And in this particular case, we'll just discuss the article. This was on Blaze Media, November 13th, written by Chris Enlow. And the article is titled, Liberal Law Professor Excoriates Prosecutors, Media Over Crash and Burn of Kyle Rittenhouse Trial. And to be fair, he's not the only one. I've seen quite a bit of media coverage on all sides of the aisle, really critical of the prosecutor in this case. Of which you and I briefly discussed yesterday. I don't think that's the controversial bit of what's going on here. So, if you go into the article, the quote, liberal professor that they're talking about is Jonathan Turley, and he wrote a op-ed piece in USA Today. So when reading this, I went and read that op-ed piece, which I also linked as the second article, and that's the other one that I came into kind of as the other conservative view. And the reason I say that, the Blaze is calling him liberal, but I actually went back and did some research on. I read the whole piece that he wrote for USA Today, and then I also read kind of a background on Jonathan Turley. And from what I can see, he's more libertarian, which I consider to be a conservative slant in politics. The reason I say that is if you read through his history, he has written pieces in support of liberal and conservative politicians, and he's also written pieces in disagreement with liberal and conservative politicians.
Well, I mean, anybody that would disagree,
So,
yeah, would be. I mean,
so anyway, that's where we're at on that, and then, I mean, we can just kind of discuss the case here a little bit and go into it. So I went into the piece that he wrote, and it actually links back to all 6 charges, the actual charging documents of Kyle Rittenhouse.
Thanks for that, because I couldn't find that. I only found the link.
So from the charging documents,
Good.
He's assigned. He is being accused of first-degree reckless homicide, use of a dangerous weapon, first-degree recklessly endangering safety, use of a dangerous weapon, first-degree intentional homicide, use of a dangerous weapon, attempt first-degree intentional homicide, use of a dangerous weapon, first-degree recklessly endangering safety, use of a dangerous weapon, and possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18. Which, I mean, not knowing what that law is in Wisconsin.
I think he did that at the time because he was 17. So.
I'm not going to dig into the particulars of it, but I think that's a pretty obvious one since we're literally watching the video of that night.
Yeah, I mean, he was 17 when that happened, so it kind of makes sense that would be at least one of the charges. So, yeah, there we go. So what else?
And so a little bit of background on this. Most people should be aware, but if anyone isn't, on August 25th, 2020, Kyle Rittenhouse traveled from his hometown to Kenosha, Wisconsin. His hometown's not very far. It's literally right across the border, from what I understand. I haven't looked it up on a map. So on this one, I'll say I didn't deeply research it. But from what I understand, it's actually pretty close. He traveled to Kenosha because there was going to be a BLM protest, Black Lives Matter, related to the George Floyd case. And it had been going on all summer. I mean, all of us remember last summer, 2020 was
it was pretty terrible.
Awful.
It was pretty. Everybody remembers that.
Yep. So he was going to go over and defend businesses from being looted and damaged. At least that was his kind of stated intent as we know it. I'm not digging into the depth of it because I wasn't in his mind or head, right?
Right. Well, he said that he went there to give aid to people that were hurt in the rioting and the looting and things like that, but he also did bring an AR-15.
And he carried along his medical kit.
Yeah, he did.
From what I understand, he has an intention in getting into some level of medicine.
Yeah, like an EMT or something.
So, that was his stated intent. What ended up happening is, of course, the protest got out of hand, grew into an actual riotous event. And there's background on why that happened, but it's not related to Kyle Rittenhouse. Eventually, at some point in time, 3 members of the now rioting group of people decide to attack Kyle. And from what I understand, there's a bit of background. There was an earlier incident where one of the attackers had confronted Kyle, but then that broke apart. And then later on, they saw him and came after him. And I believe it was because he was carrying the gun. the original confrontation. I believe was because he was carrying the gun.
I think that's what I heard. I think that's
in
what
defense
I heard
of the businesses, not
Right.
in support of the protest.
Right, he was trying protect property.
The second incident is the one that we're all familiar with. You can go online and look up the Kyle Rittenhouse video, and it's about a minute and a half long from what I understand, where like the whole series of events come down. Kyle is actually trying to leave the area, get away from the attackers. They are pursuing him. One of them comes in with a skateboard and swings and hits him with it, and then things escalate from there. He ends up shooting and killing 2 people and injuring the third. One of which, I only believe one of them was actually armed with a pistol. I might be wrong in that.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, that sounds about right. I think that's everything. I think that's...
Does my recount seem accurate to you? Am I missing anything?
No, I think the only thing that I thought was interesting about the whole thing is we'll probably get into it obviously later, but there has been a lot of focus on the judge in the case and maybe some of the things that he said or did, or it just seems very odd in such a high profile case. Again, maybe we'll talk about it later about the judge.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely in that case, there's a lot written on the judge and the prosecutor, in particular, which has been really odd.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to poke holes in, people's arguments, because I mean, I'm obviously not a lawyer. That's not what I...
Well, I hope you don't poke holes in people. I mean, that's usually how they die.
Okay.
Unless you're doing earrings.
All right. Okay. Well, no, I'm just saying that I think that it's just... I think that the more and more this goes on, I'm focusing more on the judge, because it seems like there's a lot of stuff that came out about how the judge may or may not have treated Mr. Rittenhouse, and how he treated the the defense or the prosecution, stuff like that. How he, apparently he, what was the first thing? Like he wanted, he didn't want to use the word victims for the people that actually lost their lives, because he said it was loaded language. But then the prosecution said, "Fine, what do you want to call them then?" And the judge said, "Well, you can call them rioters or looters." And then the prosecutor rightly said, "Well, that's loaded language as well if you say that." It's like, what side of the aisle? What side of the aisle do you fall on? And like, it's loaded either way, and you just want to make sure that it isn't as biased as it can be going into the trial.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see as we talk about it, about what we thought, the judge did. Or I heard he, yelled at the prosecution. And so I don't really know the whole incident and why he yelled at the prosecution or anything, or why that happened. But I mean, again, we'll probably get into all this stuff as we go deeper into the episode.
Yeah, with more background, the judge yelling at the prosecutor doesn't seem as bad. I mean, but it's not the first time either that he's had to correct the prosecutor or redirect the prosecutor. And in fact, in this sequence, there was 2 corrections that kind of happened back to back. I watched the video of it, and the prosecutor starts out with asking Kyle about a statement he'd made several months earlier, and that piece of evidence, or part of the conversation that the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney had discussed, was to be excluded from the trial.
Yeah, and I mean, he brought it up anyway, and he shouldn't have...
Prosecutor brought it up anyway, and the judge kind of ripped into him a little bit, because it wasn't supposed to be discussed in front of the jury.
Right, yeah. It wasn't. There was something inadmissible or whatever it was.
Correct.
We should probably talk about the article a little bit more, because we did get some articles to read into this, so we should probably talk about Turley and how he feels about the situation. I think it was a pretty measured article from the Blaze. So why don't you do you want to read it, or actually you should probably read it because you did, this was your topic. Yeah, I found it a really interesting article, and his kind of review of everything was really it was good. It was a good take on what he had to say about the trial, and I think it is a good article.
So related to this, if you go into it, I've already forgotten his name. Turley, the law professor, kind of towards the end gets down to the kind of political divide going on in the media, and he calls out Joy Reid, he calls out Rachel Maddow, he calls out a commentator and another law professor, Paul Butler, for some comments that have been made, and how they're coming down on this case from a political and kind of a media viewpoint, spinning a narrative, and he gets pretty critical of that. If you get towards the end, he says, many of the media rightly criticize those who encouraged riots on January 6th with unsupported claims of electoral fraud. However, some of those in the same media figures offer distorted accounts of this trial. The narrative can overwhelm the facts. Moreover, if left uninformed of the real legal deficiencies in the case, the narrative is likely to control the response of any failure to convict. These protests are part of a larger debate on racism in our country. However, this trial is about the actions of one individual, not society. These actions are increasingly favoring acquittal on the most serious charges. So kind of what he's getting at, and earlier he kind of hints at, is that because the narrative of the media is coming from one angle, he's predicting that when Kyle gets acquitted, because that seems to be the direction of the trial, and likely the only charge that's going to stick is probably the possession of a weapon by a minor, because it's irrefutable, the city of Kenosha will start seeing more riots and protests again.
Yeah, I think they said they were going to bring the National Guard in after the trial, so that way, if to stop if there was going to be any unrest or anything.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is extremely unfortunate. Like, I read an article earlier in the week. I didn't link to it because it was like 3 paragraphs or something. But Bill Ackerman, the investment billionaire, actually came out and made some comments about how him and his wife have actually been watching the trial, and both of their opinions of Kyle have changed because what they had been consuming in media had spun a different story about who Kyle is and was and what happened. And now they're getting a different viewpoint of the events that happened and are more sympathetic towards Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that I'm unsympathetic. I think it is. I think I'll say this, and this has been, I don't know, I've been reading around the edges of this, and this is kind of the main point. If there was rioting going on and the businesses were empty, and if glass had been broken out, I'm not saying rioting is good, but property.
I'm a fan.
I mean, ultimately, it's the yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, I think it's the judge, that will have to. The judge is still kind of the arbiter of the the everything of what's going on and stuff like that. So that's what I think of what's happening.
Ultimately, the decision is going to come from the jury, right? But the judge is setting sort of the stage and creating the framework with which they're perceiving the defense arguments and the prosecutorial arguments. The situation that he's creating here kind of brings question to his ability to sit and judge over a situation like this, because this is the world we live in, right? Like,
well, I remember hearing he's like one of the oldest judges.
He's the longest serving judge in Wisconsin.
Yeah, great. Well, I mean, that's gonna I mean, that's going to affect the case. I don't want to be ageist or anything.
It wasn't. I saw it somewhere else.
He's not allowing people.
The thing is I don't know
Zoom, on the iPad or whatever.
Pinch to zoom in this particular case makes that big of a difference. I understand.
I mean, it's pretty
it
weird.
Brings the judges
that would. It's just weird.
Knowledge of.
I mean, you work in IT, and it's not like everybody can understand the internet all the time. But the fact that this is some simple thing that we have, embraced in our lives that is difficult for him to understand. That he's saying something about it, adding images, and needs to get someone there wants to get a witness there to, basically refute that and all that. I mean, that to me, that just seems pretty nuts that you would feel that, you need some kind of witness to say that the iPad image isn't adding an image, So it's just, it's really weird to me that would happen.
I understand the argument that was made. I understand the perception that he has from how the argument was presented and what he was told, especially if you don't understand tech. Because the argument was the AI in an iPhone or an iPad or in another device, but specifically, he's calling out the iPad. The AI will enhance the image as you zoom in to make it look cleaner. I personally have never experienced that as I zoom in on an image on my phone or an iPad. I find that the more you zoom in, the more grainy and pixelated it gets. As I understand it, the AI for image processing in an iPhone or an iPad processes its adjustments and modifications.
It's just making something right, but it's just making something that looks, look a certain way.
Correct.
Right.
And what it's altering, again, from my understanding, and I could be wrong. I didn't read the whole Ars Technica article. I wonder if it actually highlights it. But from what I understand, what the AI is altering is lighting. It's doing HDR things where it's changing contrast at different points of the picture, trying to come up with the cleanest, sharpest image that the lens captured, not modifying what was in the picture. I mean, we're not talking about deep fakes here. So it's troubling that.
I think Binger brings that up in his, the technology and stuff like that in his. His argument basically.
Is it Binger or Binger?
I want to say Binger. Yes, it's that. Anyway, he goes on to state in the article, that. Well, one thing I'll say about him that I think is strange is that, he says that this isn't a indictment on society, but 3 court cases is how we litigate society, like Roe versus Wade was, one person versus the state or whatever. I'm being very general, but it's like these are how we get rights and do things, and so I don't like the idea of him saying, oh, this is this is only about this one person in the trial. And I think, I don't think that's really true. I mean, again, that's how we get precedent is one person sues somebody else about something to, I'm getting ahead of myself. Basically, the judge in the case wanted there to be an expert basically to talk about the image being added, or he wanted somebody like a forensic somebody or other, to come and talk about, if the image was adding, if zooming the image was adding something like that.
Expert.
Right, an expert, you're right. Someone to...
He asked him to get an expert. He gives him a limited amount of time to do it.
Right.
I do agree it is the prosecution's responsibility to make their case.
Yeah,
I still think that this line of argument is a bit preposterous.
Yeah, it's just one of the things of he has to stand up there in front of people and, the pictures show him showing his phone, to the general public, trying to say, no, this is what happens. This is what this is. It's just really strange to me that we're in a time and place where he has to do that. And, I guess later they got a TV and they blew it up on a TV or something so he could show it without it being, I don't know, altered. But still, that raises a question. If you blow it up, you're altering it. Like, there's just a lot of things, that are, I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff in there that is troubling, I think.
There's a few other things that are brought up, too. One of the articles I linked was an article from Newsweek, and it was published on 11/12. It's titled "Anger Over Kyle Rittenhouse Trial Judge Grows After Week of Controversies," written by Ewan Palmer. And it brings up a lot of stuff that he says. At one point in time, apparently, the judge says, in a comment about breaking for lunch, "Let's hope for 1 o'clock. I hope the Asian food isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor," referencing L.A., where all the boats are backed up.
I mean, this is a weird comment.
Right? Kind of a weird comment.
Yeah, but I don't think it's, the media jumped on it and said it was racist. I think that is even a stretch. I just think it's just a really, I don't know, like you and I.
So in the article, they share a tweet. I don't know who Michelle Dauber is. I'm sure she's probably more prevalent. She's a Stanford professor. The biased judge in the Rittenhouse trial just made a thinly veiled anti-Asian comment. When asked when lunch was coming, he said, in the previous quote, and then she follows the quote up with, "Because all Asian food comes from China, like the boats. Ha ha, what a bigot."
No, I think that's a stretch. I mean, I don't think that is. I mean, I don't think he's a bigot. To me, that whole comment
to him being 75 years old.
Right, he's just an old man. It's like, if you or I get Asian food, quote unquote, we know where we're getting it from. We're getting it from, we're getting Thai food, we're getting Chinese food, we're getting Japanese food. We would say, like, we're going for Japanese, or whatever your example is. We would give an example, but it just seems a thing with age that, like, they don't know that or need to know that or something like that. So, I mean, yeah, what
Chinese food.
Yeah,
Asian food.
Yeah,
Thai
we would.
Food,
yeah, we would say
Chinese food. Yep.
Yeah, we would say what we wanted. We wouldn't just spitball it and be like, "Oh, I don't know, we're getting something." It doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I think again, this is just a stretch. If you're waiting for your food to come from, China, I hate, if it's going to be on a boat. I mean, I have to tell you, it might be a bit cold going to wherever it's going. So that's not.
Yeah, it's got a long way to travel from L.A. to Wisconsin.
Yeah, so, just go to somewhere and get the food in a neighborhood that you can go to.
One of the other kind of controversial things, Thursday, the 11th, was Veterans Day. And so...
Is this the Veterans Day thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
So he announces, "Hey, it's Veterans Day. Are there any veterans here?" And asks veterans to stand up. And I think the only one that stood up, and I might be remembering this wrong, but I think the only one that stood up was the defense team's first witness, and then asked everyone to applaud him. And so the comment they make is, Rittenhouse jurors gave the first defense witness Thursday a round of applause. So, it's just kind of odd. And then from there, you have the ringtone thing.
Yeah, wasn't that like Trump's ringtone from a rally or something like that?
Apparently it's a ringtone, or the ringtone he did was
I don't know,
"God Bless the USA," written
yes.
by Lee Greenwood in 1984, performed by,
I mean, I don't know, I get it.
So the track was used as Donald Trump walked on stage for his campaign rallies in 2016 and 2020. So they've been using the song pretty consistently.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this means he's like a massive Trump supporter. I just think it's a weird thing that a judge that has been doing this for so long decided to keep his phone on in the middle of a trial Because he would know to turn his phone off, I would imagine.
Why are you even bringing it into court?
Yeah, that too. Like you'd have it in your chambers, and you may be checking on a recess or something to see, if you missed any important calls or anything like that. So I mean, it's strange.
But again, the purpose of me bringing this up is it shows the media bias that we're getting from one side or the other. So the accusation is, they quote a author from Democracy Now! He has made a series of decisions. Each one perhaps may be individually defensible, but in total lead to an impression of a biased, racist judge with his Trump rally cell phone that is trying to get Rittenhouse a walk. And this is super common. As I told you the other day when I talked about, like, hey, do you want to do this as a topic? I think I mentioned that I've got friends, again, I kind of sit in the middle a lot of the time with who I associate with. So I have very conservative friends and very liberal friends. We've discussed this many times on the show. And my liberal friends are like, there's no way he's getting off. This kid's going to jail, or needs to go to jail. And then my conservative friends are like, how could you prosecute this? This was clearly self-defense. And when you start looking out in conservative media, there's definitely people that are kind of lauding Kyle Rittenhouse as a patriot and a hero. And the other side of the argument is kind of setting him up as a villain. Again...
Well, I mean, I think the whole thing's really tragic. I like you being in the middle. Yeah. I mean... the idea that that I know of, most EMTs don't pack weapons going in. They would just bring their medical kit, and so to me, by him bringing that would heighten the situation. I'm not gonna sit here and condone rioting or looting, but it's just odd to me that he would feel that he needed to, I don't know, represent himself in that way. Or there's a big difference, again, between giving aid and harming people. And bringing a gun, I think, kind of sends, obviously, the wrong message to the people you're helping or whatever.
Well, I mean, his stated intent was to help people that were injured and to defend the businesses. So, if he was only going to aid injured people, he would probably have only brought his kit. But because he had another side of it, I would say a couple of things in response to that. One, no, most paramedics don't carry when they're at work. However, there are neighborhoods in Seattle where paramedics and fire departments won't go without a police escort because it's too dangerous for them. In defense of Kyle in this case, I think the events of the night show bringing a gun was probably the only thing that saved his life. However, bringing a gun was probably also the main impetus for the actual assault and threat to his life. So it kind of goes back and forth. It was a clearly very dangerous situation. At the end of the video showing what happened with Kyle and the attackers, we see him walking out with his hands up, surrendering to police. The police don't stop him. They don't ask him to stop. The police walk right by him and keep going. And a commentary I saw on that is, because he had clearly surrendered and was leaving the area, the police didn't stop him because there was still multiple gunshots going on in the background and still an active riot in the area. So it was a clearly very dangerous place. He probably should never have gone to at all. I think it was very poor judgment on his behalf. But I personally, and this is my opinion on it, I watched that video, and I think this kid made some really poor decisions. However, I also think that he fired his weapon in self-defense. I don't think the endangering other people is going to stick, because Wisconsin has a very strong self-defense law.
I mean, it could be because he was maybe firing into a crowd. I don't know.
Endangering other people is probably going to get waived or forgotten because he didn't actually fire his weapon until he was being attacked and assaulted. And at that point, he was fighting for his life. So that endangerment of other people is probably going to be pretty defensible.
I mean, yeah. But also, he did maybe. Yeah, I mean, there was self-defense. I mean, maybe it was because he discharged a firearm. Like, he had to be incredibly skilled with the firearm. I don't know. Firing into a public place seems somewhat dangerous, so that may be part of why he gets a charge.
And actually, one of my friends even made the comment that he actually showed that he was quite skilled with the weapon because he managed to hit only his targets and no one else. And for whatever reason, the prosecutor he's made a bunch of mistakes, but he made just a blatantly idiotic mistake in bringing up Kyle using hollow point bullets and asking him about hollow point bullets.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
One, he didn't use hollow point bullets. The prosecutor's understanding of hollow point bullets was completely wrong because he was like, don't hollow point bullets explode when they hit people? No.
Yeah, that seems like that seemed like a big error on his part too. You know, it just seemed like it wasn't helping.
And he clearly has no understanding of ammunition and weapons. However, a hollow point bullet in this situation would have actually been better because the purpose of a hollow point bullet is to transfer the energy from the bullet to the body. So the bullet hits and then it spreads out. And then that means that it slows the bullet down actually in the body, and the likelihood of over-penetration and hitting a second body is a lot lower.
So, I mean, it would have been better.
Correct.
Right.
Although Kyle is using an AR-15 in super short range with full metal jacket bullets, meaning the likelihood for that bullet to remain intact as it travels through the body is a lot higher. And still, no one behind any of the people he shot. I'm going to go super neutral on victims and or attackers. The people that were shot, I'm sure, had overpenetration, and no one behind them was hit. So the comment from my friend was, my friend thought that Kyle showed very high aptitude and skill with that weapon, because in that time he managed to control himself enough. He didn't go wild just firing bullets everywhere in defense. He only fired at the assailants and only hit the assailants.
You know, we always talk about this being podcast being about grief and everything, and I just want to read Rittenhouse, 18, is pleaded not guilty to 6 charges, including first-degree intentional homicide, first-degree reckless homicide, and first-degree attempted intentional homicide. He killed Joseph Rosenbaum, 36, and Anthony Huber, 26, and wounded Gage and Groschek, 27, when he shot them with a military-style assault rifle during nighttime protests in August 2020 after a white police officer shot a local black man, Jacob Blake, in the back and gravely wounded him. So, you know, this isn't about... this wasn't about the George Floyd thing. So...
Oh, that's right. It wasn't a George Floyd BLM protest. It was the Jacob Black one.
Yeah, I just wanted to give context to, you know, that. I mean, obviously, and talk about the victims, you know, so.
Yeah, and the officer was saying that Jacob Black was reaching for a knife, and that's separate from this, but that was the trigger for the protest and the riot.
Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, give context because we do talk about grief and everything in this, and connecting it back to politics and grief, and just actually say, you know, the victims' names.
Yep.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Right. You know, because we try to do that. That's the whole point of the podcast, is to make sure that, you know, there's things, make an account of stuff and things like that. So, yeah, just to give people context for why this is important. And it could have national ramifications for self-defense and things like that. So we don't know where this is going to go.
Well, and I've seen quite a few people mocking Kyle for crying on the stand. I've seen quite a few people calling it out as fake, crocodile tears, other things along those lines. But, I watch that and I see a kid who is permanently scarred from that incident. I watch it and I see a 17-year-old kid who took the lives of two other people at super close range. He had to watch them die. He did it with his own hand. Even if it was in self-defense and he 100% finds that to be true, he's got to live with that scar. He took a life.
Yeah,
two lives.
For the rest of his life, he's got to live with that scar of,
correct.
What happened to
But
him.
even accepted or not, you hear of officers of the law, police officers that take lives, that carry this weight, and it impacts them for the rest of their lives. You hear of soldiers who are in combat killing the people that were attacking them, having to deal with this weight of taking another life. Like, it is a big deal for most people. And you don't get sensitive to it until it's something that you're surrounded with. So another commentator, again, on the radio brought up, someone else on social media, one of my friends, posted a comment of, everyone keeps referring to Kyle as this kid after he cries on the stage, but, like, what about, who was it? Now I can't remember his name, but it was a black kid that was killed by police, Trayvon Martin. What about Trayvon Martin? He was a kid. I think they're extremely different situations. And I think
Trayvon Martin is no longer around to tell his side of the story. There's no account. At least Kyle Rittenhouse is here to.
But the narrative for Trayvon Martin wasn't, hey, he was a kid. It was, he was a thug. Right?
Right.
And this highlights
terrible,
kind of the problems in our society, right? Like, this individual case, we have to measure on the merits of this individual case, not on the social ills of our country, the disparities in our country. Kyle Rittenhouse is on trial for this specific incident, and this specific incident only, and it's not right for us to put all of the years of bias and racism, segregation, like all of the problems historically in our country and race relations on this kid for justice.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said again, this is how society changes. These incremental cases that leads to monumental decisions. So I understand his thesis or whatever in that article about we can't put a man on trial for society, but we change society by putting men on trial. And so that's how we change.
I agree with you on that. The point that I was making is that this case has to be tried for this situation on the merits of its evidence.
Right.
But if you look at this particular case, the crime isn't that Kyle's going to get off. The crime is that so many young black men or black adults don't get off based off of these situations.
Or possibly...
Like, the law isn't being applied evenly.
Right. Or they wouldn't be, they wouldn't be given the same leeway with how the situation turned out.
And it's not to say that Kyle Rittenhouse's outcome should be worse, but to say Kyle Rittenhouse's outcome should be the outcome for a lot of these other situations.
It should be equal outcomes.
It's not.
Yeah, it should be an equal outcome based on the situation, not this is an exception to the rule because of his skin color or his social standing, that everybody should be judged equally for, the crimes they've committed. So that, I think, is the thing that most people are pointing to during the trial,
Again, back to my kind of earlier statement, I think I watch this and I see a kid, and I will say that, and I will also say Trayvon Martin was a kid, as well as many other that we've had in the last couple of years. I see a kid who is going to be carrying the guilt of this, the pain of this, the injury of this for the rest of his life. I think it will be very difficult for him because he's going to find in conservative circles that he's lauded, and that's going to be difficult for him because every time he gets lauded as a hero, he's going to have to remember what happened.
I mean, we don't have the verdict yet, so we don't know how everything's going to shake out. And also, is he going to embrace being a hero, or is he going to, recoil back? And
yeah, we'll really see where it goes, right? I see, because he may not. He may walk away and actually really embrace that, and that would be very disappointing and disturbing. Although it might be a coping mechanism, we'll never know. Again, we're not in his head. And then he's also going to have to be deal with anywhere on the opposite end of the argument that thinks he should be sent to prison for this, hating him and attacking him for the rest of his life. He's going to carry both sides of this spectrum forever. From the video and the arguments that I have read and seen from this case, I think he made a very poor decision. Like you said, he injected himself into an inflammatory incident when he shouldn't have. I think at 17 years of age, he had no clue how out of hand it could get. And I think, yeah.
No, I'm just saying that I think for me, listening to everything, it's the idea that, again, if everybody had evacuated, if the people had evacuated the businesses and things are getting burned and looted and rioted, property can be rebuilt, but you can't bring people back to life. And so for him to insert himself in this situation, I think was incredibly foolish. And, he brought a gun, which is also very bad. And
and the ultimate conclusion of this, what he's on trial for, is did he murder Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber? Or did they die in his act of self-defense? And was the killing justified? Personally, watching that video, I don't think any 17-year-old that didn't grow up in a violent environment, be it a country in civil war or a really bad gang neighborhood, I don't think that any 17-year-old who's never experienced that, who's not fully trained in combat or anything else, would have reacted in any other way. And personally, I think if it was you or me in that situation and we happened to be armed, I don't know why either of us would go into a situation like that armed, but let's just say we did, I think we would react in the same way. His life was definitively at risk. And Grosskreutz, Gage, the one that was still alive but had his arm shot, I heard that like his bicep was basically completely gone, like 80% of it. Even he, on the stand, when asked, said that Kyle didn't shoot him until he raised his gun and pointed it at Kyle.
Right, and apparently, that didn't help the prosecution.
Yeah,
apparently.
The prosecution asked that question. Like,
yeah. Oh,
I mean, the prosecutor in this case...
I mean, not good. All around, I think the prosecutor is not making this, easy for, it's not an easy case. So.
Oh, man, this prosecutor is going to get torn apart in the media after the case. He's going to get blamed for, it will all be his fault in liberal media if Kyle is acquitted. Period.
Right, I mean...
like, everything's going to get blamed on him.
Well, the judge is obviously going to take some blame as well.
The judge is going to take some flack, too, if he's acquitted.
Maybe retire early, something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets kind of forced into it, because there's a lot of really embarrassing things coming out about him right now. This is being watched.
Yeah, I mean, he could have his money, too, and, he's probably got savings, and he's just going to be like, okay, we're good, we're fine. I don't know.
But, I mean... most judges, and I don't know in Kenosha, but most judges are elected, so...
Oh, good.
Good,
that'll be good. I mean, unless I heard in this, I couldn't confirm it, but I heard that he ran unopposed. So...
Oh.
Yeah. So, like anything in the world, if no one's around and no one's around and you're running unopposed, then you kind of, that's kind of how you win.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess he got really lucky, running unopposed.
So, particularly when it comes to primary time.
Oh, yeah. all that kind of stuff is.
So ultimately, like my personal
cut out a
opinion on
little bit,
this,
sorry.
I think the judge hasn't done himself any favors. The prosecutor, I'd be surprised if he's allowed to stay in law. I mean, he's just done some idiotic things. Then again, he's a lawyer. Maybe he can make his own case when that stuff comes up.
Yeah, that'll be weird to see if there's any kind of weird legal repercussions for what's going on. You know, what happened.
The ultimate situation, I believe personally that Kyle will be found innocent of all but the carrying a weapon as a minor. The problem with that is it's a misdemeanor. And I'm not saying it's a problem from the perspective of he should get more. I'm saying that it's a problem because the public is still going to be incredibly outraged when that's the only charge that sticks. Because it's a misdemeanor, and I think the maximum sentence outside of fines is 9 months in prison. And I don't think he'll get time when it comes to sentencing.
Yeah, I mean, he'll probably get probation or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. Probation and a fine.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think, I don't know. To me, I'm trying to keep a measured response and don't really know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You know, you just want to see, he made a terrible mistake. 2 people did die. You want there to be some kind of justice or some kind of, I don't know. I mean, you want there to be some punishment, right? If you commit a crime, you want there to be some kind of punishment. And if he's, you know, if he committed a crime, then I guess, I don't know. I just want some, you know, you want something to come of it too. You don't want the rioting and all that stuff to happen as well. So, yeah, you know, you want people to be safe.
It would be first degree recklessly endangering safety, use of a dangerous weapon would be the one you're talking about.
Yeah, that was the roundabout way of me trying to
read through this. The count is the above named defendant on or about Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, in the city of Kenosha, Kenosha County, Wisconsin, did recklessly endanger the safety of an unknown male under circumstances which show utter disregard for human life, contrary to sections blah, 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 blah. This is a Class F felony, and upon conviction may be fined not more than $25,000 or imprisoned not more than 12 years and 6 months, or both. And further invoking the provision blah, 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 because the defendant committed this offense while using a dangerous weapon, the maximum term or imprisonment for the felony may be increased by not more than 5 years. So, if they made that stick, there might be a less calm situation or a more calm response from public. I think the only thing that's really going to honestly stick is going to be possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18. And that's my own personal opinion.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, I think that's what's going to happen.
And I personally agree with that. I personally watch this video and I see someone who is defending their lives. These people wanted to kill him. And there was witnesses from the stand who reported that, Joseph, I can't remember his...
Rosenbaum? What's it?
Rosenbaum.
Rosenbaum? Yeah.
Flat out said, I'm going to kill him earlier in the evening.
Right.
Because they'd already had a confrontation elsewhere.
Oh, yeah, I didn't
so
actually hear that.
There's that. He'd already been hit in the head with the kid, or by the guy with the skateboard. I don't remember who that was. And then a gun was pulled on him. I personally think that that's how I would have reacted in that situation. No, I'm not happy that those 2 guys died. It shouldn't have happened. There shouldn't have been those deaths. But the ultimate conclusion of it, what the trial is about, I don't think it was murder. I think it was self-defense. And I think that it will haunt him for the rest of his life.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's your thoughts. I think we kind of feel the same about what took place and what happened. And so I guess this isn't something where we oppose one another. I guess right now we're just kind of agreeing that it was a tragic situation and it shouldn't have happened. And so I guess I would like to say that I guess next month is my choice. So I have 2 choices, Avin, and I'll let you pick. So you can either pick climate change or you can pick cancel culture. So you let me know, because I've been reading a lot about both and I want to talk about both. So out of those 2, which of those do you think we should cover. Avin, I'm turning it over to you.
Ooh.
Yeah, right? It could be you. You get to pick. So you let me know out of those two which one you would rather do, cancel culture or climate change. And what say you, sir?
I think I would lean more towards climate change. The cancel culture thing is pervasive for the last few years in coverage. But right now, climate change, there's been a couple of pretty big pieces of news with the COP26 going on right now.
There was that big UN report that happened to, a month ago, 2 months ago, something like that.
I don't know, man. It's 2021. It's been going super fast. That report might have come out like in January.
It could have come out like
last week.
It could have come out like 7 years ago. Yeah.
But yeah, you've got the UN report, and then you've got COP26 going on right now, and some very interesting and big things have come out in the news media. So I think that would probably be a good one to discuss.
Okay, so we'll do climate change.
By the way, you're wrong.
Yeah, whatever side I take, I'm wrong. Yep. Okay. Cool. I'm glad that we're reaching that. Anyway, before we go, Avin, is there anything that you would like to plug? I don't know. This is normally the show where we plug stuff and stuff like that. Like, what are you working on? What do you want to shout out so people are aware of it? You know, the normal stuff we do at the end of the episode. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to promote? What are you doing, Avin? How are you doing? That's what I want to know. What are you doing?
Well, of course, like I always do, my other business, youragentguide.com. I operate this business as as a real estate agent here in Snohomish County if you need a real estate agent. But more specifically, I wanted to help people find professional real estate agents. Or for that matter, just answer real estate questions. Like, my whole purpose for doing it is to help. There's a lot of hacks in the real estate industry.
Oh, yeah.
And
a lot of hacks. It's a thing where we've talked about it before, but like going into your, getting a home, there's a lot of stuff you wish you knew. And I didn't know stuff like that. And I definitely could have used somebody like you to say, no, do X, do Y, ask this question, get that. Because I think we got kind of the short end of the stick. Everything worked out. We got our house. But you do need someone there to, shepherd you through getting a home and making it easier. So, yeah.
Well, and I don't really care what agent you use, but, and of course I would love for you to use me, but honestly, if you have questions, you're unsure, if you're not convinced that the agent you're talking to is really a good agent, even if they are a good salesperson to you, feel free, reach out. I could do some verification, background checking. I am here to help. My whole purpose for this program is to help people get good quality agents so that they don't throw away money uselessly.
Yeah, you don't, you don't have to use Avin, but just, he is a resource.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to plug, sorry, that's not it. There's one more thing I want to plug. I have a really good friend who runs a podcast. It's called The Grief of Gaming, or Gaming with Grief.
Thanks, Avin.
And I think you guys should really check that out.
You screwed up the title while you were promoting my thing.
The guy that runs this podcast, his name is
Bosef Marlson. Was that his name?
No,
Bosef? It was
close, but I can't remember. Oh yeah, Joseph Carlson.
There you go.
My co-host here, who I talked over a lot today.
Oh well, not really. Thanks. I didn't. Yeah, go there. I cover games. I might have to have you back on the.
Such a disaster.
I'm probably gonna have to have you back on the show because we're talking about stuff.
Hey, I'm not against playing Age of Empires, but I just kind of need the time to do it.
Well, yeah, we were gonna do that too. We did mention that on the podcast that we were gonna play Age of Empires, but we did not do that. So yeah, randomly shouting that out. So I guess that's it for this month. Next month we'll talk about climate change. It's my choice. So we'll both go over that. We'll find articles like we normally do. I think that's it this month. Everybody be safe. We will talk to you guys next month. Bye.